Welcome back to another episode of Planet Hunters Coffee Chat. I'm your host, Kassie Prolongo, and of course, joining me, as always, is Nora Eisner. Hey, Nora.
Hi, Kassie. How are you? Long time no see.
Oh my God, I was just about to say the same to you. Long time no see. We've been on hiatus, guys. I mean, it happens. It's inevitable. At least here in the States, at the end of November, we have Thanksgiving, and now we're going into the Christmas holidays. So we were on a little bit of a break, so apologies, deepest apologies, but we're back now. We're back temporarily until Christmas. Oh, I forgot to wear my Christmas scarf. I'll wear that for our next episode.
Oh.
Hello, Christmas jumpers. We have to wear it. I have like a little scarf that I want to wear. We'll do it. We have to do it. A little Santa hat or something. But yeah, we're back now. And for the purposes of today, since we're back and we're going to just kind of have something that's a little bit less formal than our normal things. But don't worry, in the coming year, we're going to do some more formalized coffee chats. We thought it would be fun, or at least I thought, that we would deviate a little bit from the science talks, although there will be talks about science, and do a little bit more into what I do for a living, which is science communication. And for today, I'm going to be interviewing Nora. I would hope by now, if you've been following us, you know who Nora is. You know that she is the project lead for the Zooniverse platform, or excuse me, for the Planet Hunters test on Zooniverse. But she is a astronomer, a budding astronomer. She's going through all these cool things, and I want to be able to share that with you guys today. So I want to interview Nora, and I want you to experience what she is going through, especially if you're thinking about becoming an astronomer. I think there's a lot of value in learning about the roads that people go down as they go through their own science journeys. So on that, I'm going to take a quick sip of my tea for today, and then we will get into the chat. Nora. So this is exciting for me because I know you as a fellow human being. I love you. I love what you're doing, but I don't know that much about your science journey. And take me through it. What was a young Nora like? How did you stumble upon wanting to pursue exoplanet astronomy, or was it something that you've always had a love for science and it grew as you started to take science classes? So take me through this journey of young Nora.
I don't know where to start. Should we start right at the beginning?
Sure.
Why not? So I think my first memory of astronomy, of where I was really excited about astronomy, was we used to live in Switzerland, and my brother and I were given a telescope for Christmas. And I remember putting it up on our balcony and looking at the moon. The stars didn't interest me as much at that time, but the moon was really cool because it was much bigger. So because our telescope wasn't that big, we could use it to look at the surface of the moon and see the craters. And that was, I just remember being really fascinated by that and thinking that was just the coolest thing ever. And then after that, I guess I went into astronomy. Well, then I went through school in Cambridge in the UK, and I always liked physics. I liked astronomy, but I didn't do that at university at first. I did a year of engineering first, civil engineering. So I went to ETH in Zurich and did a year of civil engineering. But after the year, I decided, well, that's a great degree to do, and there's lots of great things about it. It wasn't the degree for me. So I moved back to the UK and went to the University of Sheffield, where they had a great astronomy and physics program. So I started doing that, and I really enjoyed it. It was the right degree for me. Much better fitted to me than civil engineering.
So you were interested in maths, because you said physics and everything, maths, coding and those sort of things as well, or the natural sciences, or how is it that you fell into physics? And is that something that your family is also involved with?
So the physics, I was interested in the physics and the maths. I didn't do any coding until I got to maybe about the third year of my degree. So I had no experience in coding whatsoever. And my brother does physics, so he did a degree in physics in London. So maybe I just decided to do what he did, but slightly different.
Or you were inspired by your brother, maybe, or something along those lines. Yeah.
That's a better way of putting that.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So he's the only other person in our family who does kind of something physics related. So yeah, then in my third year of university, I did a year abroad at the University of Maryland in the US. And that's where I really got into kind of the research and looking at things. So I did a research project there on comets, and that was really cool. So I looked at how comets rotate and what that could tell us about the comets. So comets are really cool. I think we talk about planets a lot, but comets are really interesting because comets they come from really far out in the solar system where it's really, really cold. So they're preserved because it's so cold. And then when they come into the inner solar system, we can study them, study their properties, and that can tell us about kind of the times of when the solar system formed, because they're just remnants of that time. So they are very, very interesting.
Yeah, I've heard that mentioned at NASA a number of times. They're like almost time capsules, you know.
Yeah.
Because we learn about the before times and everything before even like a lot of our planets have formed. So yeah, so you got into that. You started. You decided that civil engineering. It's kind of interesting that you did engineering too, because I feel like as an engineer, you understand some of the complexities behind like building instrumentation, and you know, even though it's civil engineering, but you could maybe speak to a certain level of that, having that as your background. And I think this is a great point to say that. At least for myself, I'm a humanities major. No career path is linear, and there's always good things to learn, despite changing, going out. You decided that engineering wasn't for you, and you decided to go into the sciences. So I think that's just something I want to throw out there to our audience, is that the humanities and the sciences they can be very similar and that sort of thing. It's maybe a bit more clear with the sciences on what kind of path you need to take to become a scientist, but that doesn't mean that you can't change, and that's okay. And I think for you that was to your benefit, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's quite useful to try different things, and each kind of subject has its own skills that you learn from it, but they're all overlapping. So I think you can learn it's kind of one skill set, for example, in civil engineering, and then take that and just be like, oh, I can apply it to this whole other field and it still be relevant. So yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. So have some of your background. You decided to do this, and your lovely brother decided that he wanted to also go into, is it engineering? You said as well.
No, he does physics.
Sciences.
He does
physics. You just said that. That's right. And so now you are currently at University of Oxford. You are doing your PhD, or is it a DPhil at Oxford? I can't remember.
In Oxford they call it a DPhil, but it's the same thing.
Is it a DPhil? It's the same.
The Latin version.
And so what is your PhD in currently?
So my PhD is kind of, the title of it is to identify and characterize planets in the test data with the help of citizen science. So my PhD was kind of advertised as I would be working with Planet Hunters tests and building it. So I kind of designed and built Planet Hunters tests at the very start of my PhD. Fun story. The test mission was supposed to be launched, I think, sometime a couple of months into 2019, but then something happened and they decided to release the data early. And I started my PhD in October. So then suddenly on the first day of my PhD, I was sat down by my supervisor and he very seriously goes, I have some news. And I was like, in my head, I was going through all the things that I was like, I've been here for a day. What could I have possibly done wrong in a day already? And he tells me that the data would be released 3 months early. And I was like, first reaction was, great news. We love data. More data, better. Great. But it then slowly but surely clicked that would also mean that I would have to build this entire project, learn all about exoplanets, and do all these things in 3 months as opposed to the initially planned 6 months.
Oh my God.
So I drank a lot of coffee.
You were on the expedited accelerated path, basically.
Yes,
when you came in.
Very accelerated.
Yeah.
That was good.
Did you know at that point that you wanted to do exoplanet, or did that really help to solidify that was the path that you wanted to go down?
No, so I already applied to work on exoplanets. So I already knew that I would be working on that.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. yeah, no, it was fun, and I'm glad it's worked out. I think we're finding lots of cool things with it, with Planet Hunters tests. So, and I still like exoplanets, so that's also good.
Absolutely. And it's something that I think you're going to have in your career path. I have some other questions about that, but I want to talk a little bit more about what you're working on, and then we'll circle back to some of the citizen science work. Um, you now are in the stages of where you're writing your PhD. And I just wondered if you could maybe, for anybody who's potentially at this point in their stage of career, or maybe considering going into graduate school to pursue science, which is fantastic. We always need people to do this. What sort of things surprised you? Let's take the veneer off about graduate study. And what would you want to say to those people just going into it? For them to be prepared, not to discourage them, but just what surprised you about going into graduate study work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think going from, a master's to a PhD, the biggest change is that you have to be a lot more independent. You do have supervisors, and of course they do guide you through it, but you do have to kind of pick and choose what you work on. You need to really manage your time. You need to and maybe less so in the first year, but in the later years, you have different collaborators in various institutes around the world, and you need to kind of pick and choose what projects are more important to you and what projects are more important to your work and your PhD and kind of your future career. So I think you have to make all of these decisions and learn how to make those decisions on the way. I think the biggest thing is you have to be quite independent. That being said, I think that varies a lot from where you are. So you have supervisors who are very hands-off, and you have supervisors who are quite involved. But getting that balance right is very important. I think the biggest advice I could give for anyone applying is meet your supervisors beforehand. Talk to them, know what their style of supervising is, and know what style of supervising works best for you, and make sure that works together. So that would be, I think that's really, really important, because you do work, with them together a lot, and it's 3 or 4 years or even longer in the US. So that would be my biggest advice. Make sure you get on.
I think that's excellent advice. And in my own personal life and talking to a variety of people who have done a variety of different PhDs, that is something that I have heard multiple times. Make sure you get on with your supervisor, because you are effectively a team working on. You are a junior colleague, if you like, if that's the type of relationship that you have with your supervisor. So make sure that you meet your supervisor in some shape or form. Maybe in COVID days, it's even just a Zoom chat, but I think that's excellent advice. I'm really glad that you said that. Another thing that I'd like to bring up is, of course, this wasn't the main reason why we were on hiatus, but Nora is in the process right now with her PhD that she is starting to apply for postdocs. And I think that is, a reality of what's happening, like getting in the job market. How is that process, and what is it like? I've never gone through it myself, so I don't understand it, but take us through it. Is it like a job application process, or are you doing presentations? Like, what is this? How are you dealing with it? And how are you doing it?
Good.
Good.
I think applying for postdoc positions, just like applying for any job, it's a lot. Or it can be a lot. So so far I've applied to about 12 positions. I know people who've applied to 30 positions just this cycle. Yeah, it can be a lot. But usually from the submission to hearing back, it can take several months. So it's a lot of being patient and waiting. So I guess the way it works is most places require a research statement, which would be, 3 or 4 pages on what you plan to work on, why you fit into the institute, what you have worked on in the past. So the good thing is that for a lot of applications, they do require similar things, so you can recycle a lot, which is, otherwise, if you couldn't do that, you would just use up all your time on applications. So that is very nice. You always have to tailor them and make sure you meet the requirements and say why you want to go to that institute. Then when you hear back, you have interviews. So interviews tend to be kind of well, I guess the format of interviews has been quite different for different places. So some of them require a talk, others have a talk and an interview. Usually the interview is with a panel. Yeah, I think that's the two formats. So yeah, it can be quite intense, because you do just spend a lot of time doing this, or at least I've spent a lot of time on these applications. You have to, get all the parts together, have CVs, have motivation letters, have the research statement, have the reference letters. So I think my biggest advice for doing that is having a spreadsheet, sharing that spreadsheet with your reference writers, so that they know when you need a reference and how they can submit those, and just knowing what positions are coming up and when.
And as you were talking about this brings us back to an earlier point about, different skill sets. And you can be, of course, a very strong scientist, but having some of these soft skills of knowing how to dialogue and talk to people, and asking questions and everything. Do you think that makes you like, I don't want to say a stronger candidate, but do you think, I almost want to say, having the skills of like a communications person could really be to your advantage here, as a scientist, because being able to speak to different audiences about your science, I think, is a benefit, truly.
Yeah, definitely. I think you need to be able to communicate your results to get us into to publish papers and to give talks, and that's of course always very good for your CV. In terms of writing the applications, you also need to be quite clear in what you're proposing to do. Another thing to keep in mind is that some of the applications are designed to be read by just experts. So some people, it specifically says this will be read by people who have a background in exoplanets, whereas others will be read by anyone who does anything in astronomy, so I would have to explain things in much more detail. So having that communication kind of skill to be able to tailor things to that is very important. So I guess other advice would be, always, if you have the chance, have someone read your application, and try and read previous successful applicants' applications. That can definitely be really helpful to get the level right, and to know and to have people check it. So yeah, and not all, interviews of course are also can be very important, but not all places do interviews. So most of the big fellowships, so a fellowship is somewhere where you can propose your own research to do, as opposed to someone says, I want you to work on this project, and you apply to work on that project. So fellowship is where you do your own work. So most of the big fellowships don't have interviews, which can be a benefit or a negative. I don't know. Depends on the person.
Yeah. Which do you prefer more when you go to conferences? Do you prefer giving talks, or do you prefer giving posters? Being in front of a poster and actually showing the results of a poster?
Personally, I prefer giving a talk. I don't know why I prefer giving a talk. I think they could be quite
fun. More interaction, that you get to actually be there and talk to people, as opposed to showing the benefits of the poster's still super great too, but I was just curious, because for me, at least, I know you personally, and you're very vivacious, and you're, a great personality, so I could envision that you probably like giving talks. But there's benefits, of course, with posters too, showing the results. Do you get to do that at conferences all the time? Do you do a lot of talks and posters, or does it just depend on what the conference is?
I've done a lot more talks than posters. That being said, I don't know why I prefer giving talks, because posters can actually, and a lot of times, just be much more, you interact with people more sometimes with posters. If there's a good poster wall in a conference, and especially if maybe there's a glass of wine there and everyone's having a good time in the poster hall, or good coffee, then I think you can portray your information on this poster, and you have people come who are interested in, and you can actually have proper conversations, which sometimes is quite hard to do when you're giving a talk. You have questions at the end, but you don't get into the same in-depth discussions. So the poster can be quite a natural way to foster those discussions. I haven't done that many posters, mostly because the last 2 years of my PhD I've been in a pandemic, and it's harder to do posters during a pandemic. But yeah, I going forward, I'm sure I'll do both. But I quite like giving a talk. I think it's quite fun.
If there's one thing that, now that you know what you know now, if there's one thing that you could have changed back in the day in terms of your career and how it's progressing, what would you have done differently?
Ooh,
Throwing out those curveballs to you, Nora.
yeah.
I like to keep you on your toes.
um,
The coffee's kicking in, so
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, I can tell.
I'm all amped. I'm all amped now.
Well, what would I change? So I think, um, do you know, I think my biggest advice of what I would probably change for my PhD is being more strict with myself about working hours and not working hours. I think I had a lot to do in my first year, or still do, but especially in the first couple of months, and I let that take over a little bit. So I think good advice, at least for past me, would be to just say after a certain time, switch off, don't check emails anymore. That can most things aren't urgent, and most things can wait until the morning. So I think keeping that right balance is really important in PhDs. And I think the reason why this is also really important is because if you're going into a PhD, you're coming from a master's program. And in a master's program, you have, at least in the UK, you have really long holidays. You have the summer off where you don't do anything for a couple of months. You have winter breaks, you have breaks in the middle. So working ridiculously long hours, I'm not saying you have to, but if you do work long hours during the term time, you always have that time to decompress during the summer and during your holidays. Whereas if you're doing a PhD, of course you still get holidays or vacations, but it's not as long and it's not as structured. So I think it's much more important to keep in mind that it's not the same as a master's degree, it's more the same as a job, and it is a job. So so keep that in mind. I think if you're applying to a position and you go into it, would be
time management. Yeah, I mean, because you have so much going on, and I often wondered at times, when does Nora sleep? I mean, because you're always doing something. So, and I think that's good. I mean, especially with, we want different personality types and different types of scientists because they always bring something interesting to the table. But I think that's great advice about the time management. As best as we can, because we're all human at the end of the day. We're going to make mistakes, but as best as we're able to. For citizen scientists, especially some of our fantastic citizen scientists who have been contributing so much to the Zooniverse and Planet Hunters tests and searching for exoplanets, do you think that do we need more people with PhDs, or is this a different way of doing science and we need both to come to the table?
Yeah, I think we want both, and I think Planet Hunters or any citizen science project can be a great jumping board to get into this and to maybe, or tread the water, see whether that is something that you like, see whether you do get excited about the science that's happening, and maybe that can encourage you to go into do a degree in it or whatever else you choose to do with it. But it definitely doesn't have to. I think I think most people probably don't want to do a PhD in astrophysics, and that's absolutely fine. So yeah, I think it's important to have people who do want to, and people who don't, and to contribute. What we're trying to show with these coffee chats and with Planet Hunters tests is that you really don't need a degree to take part in it. Anyone can take part. Regardless of any background. So I think that's the thing to keep in mind. I think if you do want to get involved, you definitely can get involved more, but if you don't, that's also totally fine. So yeah, I think it's good to have the balance to let people do what they want to do.
Different people and different it's just sort of like, I see it as like the great equalizer, and having people contribute their own backgrounds and everything to science, and it just makes for a richer, more robust science conversation. Yeah, well said, Nora. I like that quite a lot. So going back into you and your science journey, we know that your brother influenced you, whether he knew it or not, at least to set you on a path of potentially, going into physics. Was there anybody else in your life that influenced you or helped mentor you, or really inspired you to go down into the science pathway that you are on right now?
Yeah, the person who comes to mind would be the supervisor I had at the University of Maryland. He was he still is. He's just so great. He was so enthusiastic about everything, which made me really enthusiastic about everything. So this is the work I did on the comets. He, took me to Goddard Space Center, where I saw JWST telescope. I saw the shining Earth, and it was very exciting.
So cool.
He showed me observing for the first time. So we went down and collaborated with people at Lowell in Flagstaff in Arizona. So we went to see the big telescopes there, and we used them, and we observed comets. So he kind of introduced me to this field that I didn't even know existed. He showed me these telescopes and showed me all this exciting research that is happening, and encouraged me to do my own research. So I did my own project while I was there. I published a paper at the end of it. So we got really cool results, and he almost showed me that I could do this and that it can be a lot of fun. So I think that's what, I think before that, I didn't know that I would do a PhD, but after that, I think I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds like a good idea. So yeah, I think that was probably, and he also organized so I went back to Lowell, to Flagstaff over the summer after I was in Maryland for the year. And he helped me organize that, and I did a summer research project there for a couple of months, which was also really fun.
What is one of the common misconceptions that people have about astronomers that you'd like to maybe bring to light, so to speak?
I don't know, maybe that we use telescopes all the time. I know I've just talked about telescopes, so maybe that's not the best time to say that,
but you're not sitting, although you were inspired by telescopes and looking into the cosmos, you're not sitting and actually looking at a telescope on a day-to-day basis.
No, usually I've been observing a couple of times, which I think I'm very lucky to have been able to do that. But a lot of astronomers never go to telescopes. A lot of telescopes are remote, so you can just control them from your computer at home. So that's been very useful, of course, during the pandemic when we couldn't go. But yeah, a lot of telescopes are now controlled remotely, or you just submit it to a queue and then it does its own thing at night. Or we use satellites like TESS, which also, I don't go to TESS. So, but that would be so much fun. I wish I did.
That would be so
I think
cool.
maybe that's a misconception.
And on that note too, what is something that you're excited about coming up in your field in the future?
I'm really excited about the Plato mission launching. So Plato will be very similar to TESS in that it's a mission designed to look for exoplanets, and it's a satellite in the sky. But unlike TESS, it will look at one part of the sky for either 2 or 3 years. So I'm very excited about that. And I think we'll find some really interesting planets with that. So
that's going to be so cool.
We'll see. But that's not launching until 2026. So let's not get too excited too quickly.
Yeah.
We save that excitement for 2025.
We have the James Webb that's going to be launching on December 22nd. Is that something you're also, it's a little bit different, of course, but is that something you're also excited about?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be using JWST directly. At least I don't have any plans to do so right now. But I'm really excited about the science that will come out of it. I think we can use it to look at the atmospheres of planets, which is very exciting. So the last planet that we published with Planet Hunters TESS, HD 152843, the 2-planet system, that one would be a very good candidate to look at the atmospheres of. So maybe that's in the future.
So something that we have talked about very briefly in some of our coffee chats is, favorites. You always have your favorite tick ID that you always mention, which I always think is hilarious. What is your favorite planet and why?
Yeah, so I do like tick 555 25572. One of like the 3 tick IDs that I know. Well, that has to be my favorite planet because it was the first planet that we found with Planet Hunters TESS, which I think will forever just make it my favorite. I just remember I woke up to the notification that this is an exciting planet, and we looked into it, and I was like, Oscar, we need to go to a cafe and discuss this planet. So we went to a cafe on a Saturday, and this is how nerdy we are, and got really excited about this planet and did all this analysis and sent our supervisor an email, which I'm pretty sure in the caption we said urgent or important or something on a weekend, which is totally unacceptable. Because it was
you were excited. You were excited. I love it. The enthusiasm.
So excited. Yeah, and it just got more and more exciting as we looked into it more, and we verified it and we followed it up with lots of different telescopes, and it was good fun. And I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting candidate because it's a planet around an older star. So we call them evolved stars. So it's in kind of the later stages of its life. So it's, we can study these types of planets to understand kind of the future of planets and the future of our own solar system. So it's a fun planet. But mostly it's the best one.
Well, I was going to say, and I know this is completely silly to even say, but how you described it, like it was the first one, like it got you excited. It reminds me of people who open up a store and they make their first transaction and they usually frame their first like dollar bill or their first, it's a memory lock that you had, and it meant a lot. And that enthusiasm that you were talking about with your current supervisor and everything, I think that's what makes science. We can't lose. Of course, you've got the data, and there's the normal day to day, and it's a publish or perish that you must feel sometimes of, oh, I got to put these papers out. It's the enthusiasm that drives you still. At least that's what I am observing. I mean, do you feel similar? Is it that enthusiasm, not losing the curiosity? Like, what drives you to be able to get up every day and do this work?
Yeah, I think it is the excitement of finding a new system. If anything, I think I get too attached to the planets. I think I find this thing, I'm like, it is the best thing that's ever happened. I get very melodramatic about it. But the problem with that is that a lot of planets don't work out. So I shouldn't get too excited about them because then I get sad when they don't work out. But that one obviously did. So I mean, the system which the paper has just been accepted, of the triple star system, that has been a roller coaster of emotions. First I got really excited about it because I thought it was one thing, and then that was disproven, and then it turned out to be this other thing, and that was super exciting, and it's been a journey.
And how is it that, speaking of that's been a journey, how is it publishing papers with citizen scientists? How does that feel? I'm sure that excites the citizen scientists, but do you feel similar where it feels like that sense of, oh my God, we're on the right path here?
Yeah, I love publishing with citizen scientists. I love writing that email of, you discovered a planet. I wish I could write more of those emails, but unfortunately it often takes a while for us to verify it and write the paper on it. But it's always, it's so nice to be able to share that and to be able to let people know that they did help find a planet, and to have them or invite them as co-authors. So yeah, and they absolutely should be co-authors because the planet system literally wouldn't have been discovered without them. So I'm so grateful for everyone who takes part, and even the people who haven't made it onto a paper yet. Fingers crossed for if they want to be on a paper for.
Yeah. Do you have any stories that you can share? And I think we should hold like maybe a future chat with some citizen scientists, but do you have any stories that you can share with like citizen scientists knowing that they're going to be on the paper or being part of this journey as well?
Yeah, I love, like I said, I love writing those emails and letting people know. And we always ask citizen scientists to provide their name and provide just to confirm that they want to be on the paper. So we don't put anyone's name on there unless they've confirmed. And one email, which I just thought was the best thing, someone just was very excited, return email saying how much they love being on a paper, and then a couple of minutes later I get another one saying, I got too excited and forgot to tell you my name. And I think that excitement, it's just, I can totally relate to that. That's the kind of thing I would do. Yeah, I thought that was really nice.
Yeah. And it's the carrot aspect too of, this is, you're contributing to great science work, but I sort of like the fact that there's a lot of vetting to be had here because it makes it more special. It makes it more worthwhile that if you do get that email, you know that it was put through the ringer before it actually gets published. So it is, I mean, that's legit. Like that must feel amazing to be able to have that. So keep contributing. You know, we want people to keep contributing and everything because this is something that's exciting, and hopefully you'll be able to work with Nora on certain papers. So
absolutely. So we do
oh
have,
my
we have a
gosh.
paper in that, or we have a candidate that we're very excited about at the moment. So
Are you allowed to say anything, or is it still too early? Is it still too? Oh, it's still too early. Okay. Okay. Ooh, that's exciting. Tidbit. She's throwing little morsels out just to reel you in. I love that. Well, Nora, this has been enlightening. And as always, I love having conversations with you because I always feel like I get to know you better, and you are a positive force. And I think you are I'm not just saying this out of bias because I know you, but I think that people who interact with you, especially citizen scientists, can feel your enthusiasm. And that's something that we respond to, and why it drives us too. It binds us together because we're like, yeah, I'm excited about this too. And I'm like, yeah, and the scientist is excited about this. So if she's excited about it, then I'm going to be excited because that means it's like, this is a great thing to be part of. So you're a wonderful model in yourself and holding this up. So, so I want to thank you for taking the time to answer some of my questions today. And I want to just throw this out there to anybody else. I asked Nora a lot of questions, but if you have any other follow-ups, because I'm sure there are more questions to ask, if you have any other questions about Nora's science journey or anything else going into graduate school, let us know. Email us, drop it in the chat, reach out to us on social media, and we'll answer you. We'll get back to you on that. So, okay, cool. Well, thank you very much, Nora. And in future episodes, we're going to be delving a little bit more into science. But for today, we hope that you guys took something positive and learned a little bit more about Nora's science journey. Good to see you, Nora.
It's nice to see you. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.